Welcome to the SFL Season 21 Schedule Release Show, along with Mike St. Green. I'm Cameron Irvine, and Mike and I were just catching up. Haven't gotten a chance to hang out. He lets me know every week when he calls me and says, why don't you talk to me anymore? Mike St. Green with us, fifth in a row. Mike, Schedule Release Show. This has become a tradition of ours. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, Cameron. Man, you just stole my opening line. I was going to ask you, being that I heard this a few weeks ago, now that if I was going to do this correctly, I was going to say, man, this is my schedule release show, and only you can judge if I did that correctly.
I'm sorry, you kind of cut out. I didn't really hear that, and I don't think it really came through. You broke your mic. I didn't break mine when that all happened. So, but it's all good. The week one schedule is up on your screen here for the SFL convention. We got a bunch of people in the chat room, and the chat will play a big part of how this show will go later on. But first, we're going to talk about that week one schedule, and let's get right into it. Let's not waste any time. This is your convention schedule for week number one, and it starts, Mike, with Baltimore on the road against the Florida Storm. These two franchises combined for 10 of the 20 championships, or I should say these coaching staffs, in the APF era. Now we're going to get to see what these two teams will do on SFL 4K23 right off the jump on Friday night in Cincinnati. What do you think about the matchup, Mike?
Extremely intriguing matchup, Cam. As you mentioned, the 10 championships between the two coaches, and if we can take a real life comparison, I mean, we could compare a couple of dynasties. This Baltimore, maybe they can be considered a certain dynasty in the real life league, and Florida can be considered another. And what better way than to start this new era with these two APF dynasties going at it for the first time in the 2K4 era.
Shout out to Russell Taylor in the chat, new player today, Roscoe Jenkins, free safety. Looking forward to seeing him in SFLM action week 5 coming up on next Friday. Back to the schedule. Hall of Fame game, 2022 class member Colin Northrup and his Motor City V8s taking on 2023 class member Michael Turillo and the Carolina Skyhawks as Carolina opens up their new home just after Turillo's what we're expecting to be an incredible speech. I know that St. Green's been preparing his speech for the last couple of years when he eventually gets in. But Motor City, Carolina, two teams, Mike, that I think have much higher expectations as we head into Season 21, and it's going to be interesting to watch them clash.
Yeah, Cam, if I'm working on my Hall of Fame speech right now, it's going to be irrelevant by the time I get in. But, going to be interesting to see these two teams match up. Carolina, as it stands right now, possibly looking for a new quarterback to go into this new era with. And that's one unique thing about the schedule release show this time around, Cam. We are not really 100% sure who's going to be playing where. We can assume that a lot of these teams are going to be re-signing a lot of their current roster, but there's some free agents out there that we're not sure what they're going to land. And so it's going to be interesting to see in some of these matchups and how teams build their rosters and handle the new cap situation as to how these matchups are going to play out during the course of the season 21.
Saturday's jam-packed. Let's start with the spotlight games. We kick it off at 11 a.m. in the morning, Indianapolis, Minnesota. If you don't like day drinking, well, maybe you better get to it. Indy and Minnesota will start us off and start the party off right in Cincinnati. That's going to be a huge game, St. Green, as Indy goes to Northwoods to renew their rivalry in the new game.
Yeah, aside from the Baltimore-Florida matchup, this looking at this schedule, this has to be the second most intriguing matchup for me. These teams, they've come in as rivals. They built, this rivalry now, Cam, is probably one of the bigger rivalries in the league. With these two teams coming in, this will be the third season. They clearly two organizations that are not very fond of one another, and it should be a great matchup to start out that Saturday slate at the convention.
4 o'clock, Estadio Matt Wilson opens up to the rival Fort Worth Toros in a South Division matchup, and I know that I'm looking forward to seeing Matt Wilson watching SFL football as Mexico City's just built themselves a world-class, beautiful stadium, and it'll be great to see those two Southern teams tussle.
Yeah, and that's going to be one of the most unique things about this new era. The things that the teams and organizations are going to be able to do with their stadiums, and as you mentioned, Matt Wilson is going to be, right there watching over the Aztecs, from here to eternity, encourage his guys on, so to speak, from above, and that's going to be great to see. Mexico City opening at home against Fort Worth.
9 o'clock, Cliff Allen just left Arizona to become the Director of Communications in San Diego. Well, he's going to welcome his new team, or his old team, into his new home, as it's the battle of the podcasters, Mike St. Green. It's Mike O'Neill, Dave Axis, Ashley Jackson, Eddie Gades. They're all in action to close out a mega Saturday at the SFL convention in Cincinnati. What you think?
Oh man, that should be a great way to close it out. I already saw Cliff Allen, posting the Players Channel. He already has his Mavericks gear on and look pretty sharp, Cam. I'll tell you what, if I wasn't part of Houston, I think the Mavs would be a perfect organization for me as well, man. The military background that they have over there, it would fit me perfectly. And I definitely have great ties over there at Arizona as well. So extremely great matchup to close out the Saturday slate of games at the convention.
Now we'll have some red zone style action going on in the afternoon and in the evening with the other 16 teams in action. You'll notice that Queen City is not on the week 1 schedule. They have a bye. 27 teams in the SFL. Not everyone can play in week 1. Queen City draws the week 1 bye. So when you're talking about 4 games going on at once, you're going to have a big screen. You're going to have all 4 games right there on the screen all the time. And we're going to have a little icon that lets you know which game's audio is currently being displayed. But in the afternoon, Houston at Sioux Falls, Canton at Jacksonville, Vancouver at Alamo City, Atlanta at Louisiana. Pick one of those, Mike.
Well, let's go Houston. Let's go with my team. That's a rematch of the playoffs matchup. A couple of seasons ago, season 19, it was in Sioux Falls. Sioux Falls managed to win that game 22-21 or 21-20. I know it was a 1-point game. So it'll be interesting to see going back in there to see if the Headhunters can get a victory going back into Sioux Falls.
I'm looking at Mike All as he returns to Jacksonville after being the general manager over there for the Kings. He comes in with the Classics. As I see Skippy's already ahead of Super Chat schedule here on the schedule release show. $1.99 Carolina, baby. Season 21, come get some. But Canton, Jacksonville should be great. Atlanta, Louisiana, also a divisional battle kicking off there. Of course, the East and the Atlantic have 5 divisional games this season, with London being inactive and needing an extra game. Now, in the evening for the Red Zone, Charleston, D.C., Los Angeles at Vegas, Tulsa at Denver, Portland at Seattle. What you going to have your eye on, St. Green?
Oh, Portland and Seattle for sure. Seattle, they've been, very active, getting their, stadium together, getting their roster together. They made some changes in the front office. They're going to be one of the teams that's going to make a change at quarterback going into season 21. Portland, we haven't seen much movement over there, so we can assume that they're going to keep a lot of things intact. Will Ezekiel Love be as effective in this era as he was in the APF era? It's going to remain to be seen, but that's going to be an intriguing matchup between 2 teams that are still looking to make that final step and get into the playoffs.
$2 super chat from Jacob Clear. Forget Carolina. How about them Preds? $4.99 super chat from DJ Kilgannon. I need an SFL team to root for while I'm still in the minors. Help. Hey, he doesn't need any help down there. Lexington's still undefeated. $10 super chat RH video. Looking forward to attending my first convention and looking forward to having you there as well. I'm looking at LA at Vegas. Mike, Tom Rahman, who's in Vegas's stadium. They got a banner up there hanging for their former quarterback. He goes to Vegas, can you believe this, for the very first time since he left there and started the team in Los Angeles. So that one should be a great one. Los Angeles and Las Vegas. All right, that is a look at the convention schedule, the week 1 opening schedule. Now let's get to Monday Night Spectacular. And yeah, anybody out there wondering, man, what are we going to call it this year? Because Cam went Impact Monday and Mike Daggs went Monday Night Spectacular, and then they had like this huge riff all season long. You know what? The people have spoken. Monday Night Spectacular it is, and Monday Night's Spectaculars will start in week 2, and they will start in Atlanta, where DC will be traveling to face the Atlanta Swarm for the first time ever St. Greenwood. Crazy enough. Week 3, Vegas at Vancouver for the Legion's home opener. Fort Worth at Tulsa in week 4. Fort Worth has never traveled to Tulsa. They will for the first time for Tulsa's home opener. Week 5, LA at Alamo City. Week 6, Charleston at Canton, the Classics in prime time. Week 7, Indianapolis at San Diego. We teased that earlier today. That's the September 11th Memorial game in San Diego. I know the Mavericks will do that justice. It is the first meeting between Chad Rowland and Dave Axis ever since Indy became a franchise. Motor City at Louisiana on the 18th of September. Gerald Smith came from the Motor City V8s back in the day. Vice Wars on September 25th. And then we get into our flex scheduling. Mexico City at Minnesota. DC at Jacksonville for the first time since the Hurricane game way back in Season 7. It's the only game we ever played APF on heavy rain, literally during a hurricane. Atlanta at Baltimore, Week 12 in a rematch of the semifinals. Vancouver at Portland, Week 13 in a crucial Pacific battle. What sticks out to you, St. Green, about the Monday night spectacular schedule?
To be honest with you, Cam, right at the top, Atlanta and DC. Will Atlanta, how would they build or come back or on this off this 10-1 season, falling short in the playoffs this season after being number 1 seed? And DC, can they bounce back and get back into the playoff picture this season? Going to be an interesting, intriguing matchup there. And then actually, I go all the way down to the bottom. What will that game mean on that final Monday of the Monday Night Spectacular, Vancouver against Portland? Where will these two teams be in the pecking order for as a playoff contention at that time?
We got some super chats to get to. DJ the Myth, $2 super chat. DJ Woods, unmasked face reveal at the convention. Ooh, potentially. Skippy, $4.99 super chat. Forget Shamu, Skyhawks all day. Oh, man, Mike, I can't wait to see where Charleston and Carolina end up on this schedule. Jay Ballmer, $4.99 super chat. Looking forward to my first convention with a different team and cheering on all the Texas teams. No, he didn't say that, but I just thought he'd like it. $4.99 super chat from Fox Highwind. All us free agents in here doing their best not to have their soon-to-be signed contracts voided. I hear you, Fox. It's so close. I'm just waiting on confirmation from the portal, and then we'll get right into it. All right, that's the Monday night spectacular schedule. This week in the SFL returns for its second season. That'll always start at 7 p.m. Eastern, and your kickoffs are at 8:15. That is a look at the Monday night spectacular schedule, and let's now get to the national television schedule on Next Level Sports, and that will start in Canton, Ohio, where the Canton Classics will have their first ever nationally televised game. They will host the Louisiana Revolution in Week 2 on August 5th. Week 3, Portland goes to Mexico City for Matt Wilson's Stadio Matt Wilson's debut on national television. Week 5 is Louisiana at DC. Week 6, Florida at Charleston. And if you can believe it, Mike, that is Charleston's home opener. Week 7, Portland at San Diego. Boats and planes are back again. Week 8, Jacksonville and Carolina. It will be the 19th meeting between the Kings and the Skyhawks. They have not met since season 18. Baltimore at DC renews their rivalry September 16th. Vancouver at Fort Worth, a rematch of the playoff game this past season in the quarterfinals as Fort Worth knocked them out. September 30th, LA at Seattle, big Pacific Division clash there. October 7th, Minnesota at Fort Worth. San Diego at LA. The battle for California is back in Week 12, and Indy at Vegas, Week 13. Take it away, St. Green. What sticks out to you?
Well, Baltimore and DC, that matchup is always intriguing. It always seems to, have playoff and divisional implications in that game. But really and truly, the most intriguing one to me is San Diego at Los Angeles. That game, that rivalry, back on the schedule for the first time. I want to say, I think in a couple of years since they switched out. San Diego left the Pacific Division, going over to the West, and that should be an interesting matchup going back to that rivalry again being revisited.
Vancouver and Fort Worth, they have played in the playoffs 3 different times, Mike, and those two franchises will do battle again. That's really going to be a fun one. And then 2 weeks later, Fort Worth turns around and hosts Minnesota, so a tough home stretch there for the Fort Worth Toros, and both will be headlined on national television. You'll also see throughout the evening NLSC Plus on your team schedules, and that will that indicates either bonus coverage on the cable satellite game, or it would also be on the NLSE Plus stations, channels, apps that are expected to be launching sometime before our season begins, but it just all depends. You'll see those games on there as well. So that's a look at the national TV schedule. Mickey Malillo, $4.99 super chat. I go up against Chad and Dags. There's going to be some trash talk in the broadcast meeting. Oh, absolutely. And now it's about time to get those super chats ready so you can see your team schedule. We'll go in the order of the super chats, and we'll get them all read and get you your schedules throughout the day. But Mike, how's the offseason been treating you while we wait for essentially our script to roll in here for the rest of the show?
Off season's been great, Cam. Free agency for Houston has been intriguing. I mean, we have some commitments that we, looking forward to signing on the dotted line. And but just for me personally, it's been great, just relaxing, getting to get away for a little bit. And it's just been great, and looking forward to season 21 more than anything. Looking forward to see what Houston has in front of us here hopefully here in a few minutes.
I'm looking forward to seeing something on my wall back there and getting this office straightened out. We have been, it's just been crazy trying to get all these stadiums built, trying to get everything ready for the season. But we are now ready for our team schedules tonight. DJ Kilgannon, $4.99 super chat. How about one for my coach, Marco in Tulsa? Absolutely. Tulsa's going to start our night tonight. And let's take a look at what the Desperados have in store. They will start with a couple of games on the road at Denver and at Arizona before a bye. We mentioned that their home game debut is against Fort Worth on the Monday Night Spectacular on August 21st. Then they go back to the road against Mexico City before another early bye. Mike, it's interesting this schedule comes up first because they are the only team with 2 byes in the first 6 weeks of the season. Then they hit their home stretch with a pretty decent balance there of home and away. They got a big tussle with Indianapolis in Week 11. Of course, all your Week 14 games, dates, and times are to be determined. But your thoughts on Tulsa's schedule and what you see out of it?
Yeah, that's going to be a tough grind. That's what that says to me. The last, 8 weeks or so of the season for Tulsa, they're going to have to grind week in and week out. And hopefully these guys can keep things together over there. And not to mention a pretty tough start. But how can we say that this time of season? How do we know how tough that start is going to be? Who's gonna go into this era, Cam, and make adjustments, to their team, to their roster, to their strategy and how they approach things in their offensive and defensive strategy. So it's going to be interesting to see how this thing plays out, next season. Just from the standpoint of we don't know, and then that's part of the thing that I'm really excited about, the mystery of not knowing what to expect in season 21. Man, we can see this whole thing turn over on its ear by the time we get on to week 14.
Yeah, it really is hard to say. Usually in this schedule release, we're talking about all the, they're playing 7 playoff teams from last season or whatever, but it's you just really don't know what's going to come out of it. I saw a $25 super chat from Rochelle Colston. That moves her to the front of the line, and that moves Los Angeles next into the schedule release show. And their schedule looks a little similar to Tulsa's early on. They're at Vegas and at Denver back-to-back weeks before Week 3 bye. They'll come home to host Seattle in their home opener in Week 4. Their next bye is about middle of the road in the schedule. They will end the season at Portland, but a 3-game homestand right before that against Mexico City, San Diego, and Fort Worth. 2 nationally televised games late in the season as L.A. expected to grow into expectations, and then their Monday night clash with Alamo City in Week 5. Your thoughts on L.A.?
Well, Cam, no matter what era, what platform we're playing on, 3 out of your 4 weeks, and to start the season coming out, that's a tough way to start your season. No one wants to start the season on the road like that. So the Lakers will have to prove themselves very early in this season to what type of team that they're going to be coming into season 21. So they're going to have to get off to a great start. I know these guys will want to improve on the season that they had last season, but they're going to have a chance to prove themselves very early on in this schedule.
Los Angeles, it's going to be fun watching them open up their new stadium against a Pacific Division rival in Seattle. That's always fun. And then their next home game is against Vancouver. So both of their divisional home games are early on in the schedule. Something to look out there for Los Angeles. I saw Mickey Malillo with the $19.99 super chat beating Skippy to the punch. And Malillo, I want to get exactly what he said. Minnesota. Well, short and sweet. That's easy enough for Mickey. Let's look at the Minnesota Legends schedule coming soon to a Northwoods near you. Hosting Indianapolis, of course, in week number 1. Then they'll go to Alamo City in a rematch where Alamo City came to Minnesota and stumped them in the playoffs. That will happen in week 2 in San Antonio before coming back home against San Diego and Sioux Falls before a week 5 bye. Minnesota and Tulsa are the only 2 teams with 2 byes within a 4-week period. Everybody else's are pretty spread out. You got the Mexico City game on Monday, and you've got at Fort Worth on Next Level Sports. They conclude with at Tulsa and a sneaky good game there in week number 13 on a Saturday night versus Arizona. What you thinking about the Legends schedule here, Mike?
Well, Cam, let me just reverse myself. Let's just go with the what we've known from the past of the SFL. This is a tough schedule, man. If we go by what we have seen in the past and what we know, to be good teams in this league, Indianapolis, Alamo City, San Diego, Sioux Falls, that is a tough way to kick this thing off. Then they have Indianapolis again later in the schedule, and then getting down there close to the end, Vegas and Arizona. Tulsa, who's proven themselves now to be a playoff contender season in and season out. It's a tough schedule for the Legends. It's going to be interesting to see how they adjust coming into this season and what they can pull off and see if they can make the playoffs again for the 3rd season in a row.
The byes felt very differently this season. They're all over the place, right? Minnesota gets the bye before that rematch with Indianapolis, so that's interesting. But that stretch right after the bye, Indy, Mexico City, Fort Worth, 2 of the 3 on the road. Yeah. That is going to be a tough one there for Minnesota. Skippy with the $19.99 super chat says, "You already know what I want to see, Poppy." No pause. Okay, all right. I think I know what you want to see, and that's the Carolina schedule, and that is not the right graphic to put on there. Carolina's schedule looks like this. Let's bring it full. It's hosting Motor City in week 1, and then they go to Baltimore for the championship banner raising in week 2. That rivalry game Sunday night, right squarely at 6:30. Then they got Queen City followed by a bye, and then 2 on the road. Atlanta, at DC. Tough. Jacksonville at home on national television on September 9th. They end the season with 2 divisional home games versus Charleston, versus Baltimore. They play Charleston twice, Baltimore twice, and then their 1 game against DC in week 6. What you think, Mike?
Well, first of all, that's a nice stadium that Carolina is breaking out next season. But can these guys improve or continue that flow of we're getting better, we made the playoffs? Can they improve on this season? Can they take that next step to really become a perennial contender in the SFL? And for whatever reason, I believe they can. They're going to be looking at a new quarterback possibly. I don't think we've gotten official word on if Matt South is actually coming back to them or not, but it's going to be interesting to see if they can, improve upon this historic season that they had in season 20.
Yeah, where does their momentum go? Does it stall because that's it? That's the end of an era? Or does it continue on? It's going to be really interesting to see what Carolina does with it. They don't have a rematch against Tulsa because they're on the other side of the schedule. And then Carolina played Arizona, right, in the quarterfinals, and they don't have that either. So Carolina staying east with all their stuff this season. Okay, $10 super chat from Justin Reside says, "Chad better be ready to come to Vegas." That's what Justin's got to say about that. Here's what we have to say about the Las Vegas Fury schedule. Of course, opening up against Los Angeles. They have a bye before they head to Vancouver. Very early week 2 bye. We'll talk about byes as we go along through the show, but that starts 3 out of 4 on the road. They're also at Portland and at Sioux Falls. They end the season hosting Minnesota and Indianapolis before they go to Arizona, and Vegas is probably saying, "Oh my gosh, you sent us to Arizona again in week 14? How many times has that happened?" Yeah, I know. It was there was a different version where you were at home, and just didn't work out that way. Back to Arizona in week 14. What do you think about Vegas' schedule?
Well, Vegas, hey, it's a division matchup. You're going to face them every year, one way or the other. So, hey, if it's early, if it's late, you got to pick your poison on that one. And one intriguing thing, Cam, they don't even go east of Tulsa this season. So they're going to spend a lot of time out in the Pacific and out west. So your frequent flyer miles, as far as your travel miles, they're not going to be that great. So you're going to stay close to home. A lot of time in the Pacific, and should be interesting out there out west for all those teams in the Pacific and the Western Division.
It is interesting, Mike, because the way that the divisional rotation fell, because of a lot of the divisional shakeups back when we started the divisions in season 19, or reshuffled the divisions in season 19 when we got those expansion squads. A lot of these matchups were put to the back of the schedule, right? Because Vegas just played Los Angeles, and Vegas San Diego just played LA, right? And so you have all these matchups now coming back full circle, and a lot of these teams that are close in proximity have not been playing each other, and now they're playing all of them right here. So you're going to see a lot of teams west sticking west, east sticking east, and the central mixing things up. In fact, the central goes mostly west this season. Portland Fleet SFL got their $9.99 in first, $9.99 super chat, no fly zone. Let's take a look at the Portland Fleet team schedule here tonight. They will start at Seattle, followed by an early bye, then at Mexico City. So Portland has to wait a little bit for their home openers too. Then they start hosting Denver, which is where Jacob Bouvette's got his coaching start. They'll host Denver August 19th. That is their home opener on NLSE Plus before they host Las Vegas. After that, it's 3 straight on the road, one of 4 teams with 3 straight road games on their schedule at San Diego, at Vancouver, at Houston, before coming home to host Alamo City. But the rub, Mike, is that you have a bye and then 3 games at home: Fort Worth, Vancouver, Los Angeles to end it. So for that last month of the season, they do not go on the road. Portland, very interesting schedule.
Yeah, tough travels there in the middle of the schedule, 3 in a row on the road. Then, like I said, they get a break, and then they have 3 tough ones. 3 pretty tough ones at home, but they're going to be intriguing matchups. That Portland and LA matchup is going to be interesting. That might be for a playoff spot and definitely playoff positioning down the line. But I put Portland in the same category as Carolina has been over the past few seasons. They've been, trying to make that extra step, and have been falling short. In last season, they really kind of took a turn, for the worst, as far as being right there in the playoff picture. But can they finally make that final step, make it to the playoffs, and finally put Fleet football on the SFL map?
And what's interesting about Portland is that they often can turn it on late, right? Well, late in this schedule, they've got a bunch of home games, and so it could work out in Portland's favor, but you don't want to dig a hole either. You don't want to keep following the trend of what's gotten you sent home each of the past handful of seasons for Portland. They'd like to turn that around. Joseph Clausen, I see you, $10 super chat. MCV gonna burn rubber this season. Let me see our team schedule. Cam, coming right up. Motor City V8s are next. One of the most fascinating teams. You just know they're going to do something crazy, and who knows, maybe it's going to all work out this time for Motor City. They'll start at Carolina before they come home for a whole month. First Jacksonville versus Canton in the battle for the Golden Dog Bone on NLSE Plus, and then a bye followed by Queen City. That's who they'll end the season with after a Week 13 bye, and a bunch of ats and verses sprinkled in there. Pay attention right into that middle, that heart of the schedule. At Atlanta versus Baltimore, at Louisiana versus D.C. Could potentially be extremely tough if things continue on as they have continued on, St. Green. But Motor City, I'm very intrigued.
Yeah, we don't know if we're going to see 5 wide receivers all the time. We don't know if we're going to see 3 tight ends. We don't know if we're going to see the wing T. We don't know what we're going to see with Motor City as far as what they want to do offensively. But one thing that kind of just stands out to me just in general, that North Division, obviously, London not playing this season. Who's going to step up in that division? Who's going to take control? Will it be Motor City? I mean, they are used to making the playoffs when they were in St. Louis, so that they are capable, but they have not made any noise since moving to Detroit. Can they make some noise up there? It's going to be interesting to see who's going to take control in that North in season 21.
I love what they've done with the colors of their stadium. A very vibrant place to play. And that's going to be a lot of fun to see Motor City open that up in week 2 against Jacksonville in a little matinee. $9.99 super chat from Ashley Jackson. AZ, baby, sure thing. Here's the Arizona Scorpions Stadium. They start at San Diego, of course, before they host Tulsa the next week on August 6th. Then back out on the road at Seattle and at Indianapolis before coming back home against Vancouver and their first bye. They'll end the season at home against 2 division rivals, Denver and Vegas. So 2 late division home games for Arizona could tip the scales. How do you like how the Scorpions may fare this season?
They are one of the most intriguing teams in SFL for me coming into the new era, Cam. Will they continue their success of being in the past 2 championships games, and how will they look in this new era? Will they be able to sustain what they've grown to be and who we have recognized them to be over the past few seasons? And basically they're one of the best teams in the league. There's no question about that. Will they continue that? And they're going to have opportunities early at San Diego. That's going to be a very interesting matchup versus Tulsa, another playoff team, up-and-coming Seattle. And, and everybody seems to want to take a shot at Chad in Indianapolis. So that's going to be intriguing as well, that first quarter of the season.
A $5 super chat from Charleston. You are coming up next. But first, a $9.99 super chat from Frosty Times. Say hi to my daughter, Maddie. Hi, Maddie. Welcome to the show. And if Mia's out there, hi to you too, because I know that she watches a lot of SFL stuff as well. All right, let's get to Charleston, the Charleston Predators. This, Mike, may be one of the most interesting schedules out there on the board, because for the first time, I think, in SFL history, a team will start with 3 straight on the road with a bye, an early bye sprinkled in there at DC, at Jacksonville, at Queen City, before hosting Florida on national television in their season opener August 26th. Then they turn back around and go to Canton. Now the rub, of course, 6 home games, 6 away. Everybody's got to play them at some point. They're home for the next month, finally, to get a breather, and then they close the season hosting the DC Dragons. If you were a coach, you love this or hate this here in the new era?
For Charleston, I hate it, and I'll tell you why. Yeah, it's going to be tough going on the road for any team to go on the road for 3 in a row. But if I'm understanding it right, if I saw the reports right, I think they're going to be replacing a quarterback. I think Kentez Johnson is stepping away from the Preds this season. So to come in with a new quarterback, 3 on the road, new era, you really don't know what to expect from your team. So that's going to be tough. I wouldn't want to, go into the new era that way. So hopefully Charleston can figure things out quickly, and it's going to be important for them to get off to a good start and not dig themselves in too big of a hole if they want to compete in that division over there this season.
Charleston's going to be rocking in week 6, and then Jacob Clear in the chat says, I'm here for it. Bring it. I saw Ray Dizzy asked, is this the season where we move to 4K23? Yes, it is, and all of our new stadiums are being showcased throughout the show, as we go through these team schedules here. Okay, I'm going all the way back up because I did see Jay Ballmer, $4.99 super chat, says, wish I went to this team to destroy Texas. Mexico City, please. All right, Mexico City Aztecs coming right up, as anyone can get any team involved in the chat, whatever you want. This is your show. So let's take a look at it. Mexico City starts in week 1. First Fort Worth, then at Indianapolis in a matinee, then they welcome in Portland. Later down the schedule, they do have a week 12 bye, and Seattle and Houston at home to end the season. You'll note, Mike St. Green, that the Houston Headhunters only play Mexico City once, and it's in week 14. Let's talk about that. There's a lot of games, a lot of matchups on the schedule where actually your only meeting against this divisional opponent is the last game of the season. In the past couple seasons, it's always been the rematch. But now you're talking about head-to-head tiebreaker wins right there at the end of the season. How do you see Mexico City faring with this slate?
Well, just looking at that last game, an interesting matchup, of course. Houston and Mexico City play every season. Houston has gotten the better of Mexico City the past couple seasons. So we know that game is going to have some implications. We're not sure what, but we're pretty sure that most of these teams in this division are going to be right there in contention or clinching a playoff spot. And Jay Ballmer, I don't know what happened to him in Texas, but he hates Texas. But hey, to each his own with that one. But yeah, he has professed his hate for Texas several times.
I'm from Texas, so it hurts me a little bit every time he freaks out. Maybe he'll super chat us and tell us why that is, because it's quite bizarre. As a person from Texas, how could you hate Texas?
Yeah. How could you possibly hate Texas? I can't figure it out.
I don't know. And obviously the SFL doesn't hate Texas because we got 3 teams. We have 3 teams in Texas. $5 super chat from Seattle. That's Doug Day. Nemasphere. Oh man, can't wait to watch some games in Seattle. There is a look at their schedule. They open up versus Portland. Then they've got at Los Angeles in week 4. They got a tussle with Arizona in week 3. That San Diego game is spicy now, as Mike O'Neill and Doug Day have been hanging out over the last few months. You've got Paul Sarp over there, Paulie Truth in Seattle as well, part of our Monday crew. Anyway, that all squares off week 8. Friday night, late September 15th. That starts a 3-game homestand for Seattle that includes San Diego, Houston, and Los Angeles before St. Green. I think this may be a first time as well. 3 on the road to end it. With a bye, they are done with their home games when they host Los Angeles in week number 10. At Denver, at Mexico City, at Vancouver to end it off. Would you rather start or end with it, Mike?
I think I'd rather start with it than end with it, because especially for this team, they're still a young team. But they're on the come. I always find them kind of intriguing, and they kind of intrigue me like Portland does. And they've been on the come. They've been making steady improvements. They've decided to go in a different direction at quarterback this season. It's going to be interesting to see who they bring in, but they had better make noise early, because going to Mexico City and Vancouver to close out that season, as well as Denver, that's not going to be an easy trip as well. So we'll see what the Nemesis stand coming into that point, but they're going to have to make some noise early if they want to finally, make some steps towards the playoffs themselves.
Depending upon how you look at it, Mike, you're thinking, well, if I get someone who's been obsessed with APF over the last 10 years, I want them early, because I don't want them getting obsessed with the new game late in the season and turning it on, right? So for Seattle, kind of a bad break there, because Vancouver and Mexico City have been very good on APF. We don't know how that's going to transition over for those organizations, but getting them late, kind of a tough draw there for Seattle. And of course, we don't know what the hell we're talking about, because we don't know what's going to happen. But, we're just doing the best we can. James Walters, $10 super chat. Let's see the DC Dragons for the new DC. All right. That's perfect, James. In fact, it kind of blew my mind how you just wrapped up defensive coordinator and DC all in the same super chat. Here it is. First Charleston in week 1, then at Atlanta week 2 before an early bye, then back at home on national TV to host Louisiana. They finish off pretty balanced with a couple of games south at Jacksonville, at Charleston, home against Florida. But all in all, pretty balanced schedule there for DC. Nothing too crazy. What do you think of what the Dragons are looking like this season?
Man, they're going to be on prime time and national TV a lot. That's what I see on this schedule. But as far as what to expect from them, if judging by seemingly their enthusiasm going into this new era and the team creation and the stadium build and things that's off the field, if they're doing on the field what they put into off the field, I expect great things from DC this season. They've done a great job off the field of getting this team prepared to go into season 21. And as you mentioned, this is a pretty balanced breakdown of the schedule as far as home, away, nothing extreme either way. Of course, they're going to stay out east and in the north, and with the teams that they're going to play. So they're going to have opportunity to really have a good season. If the North doesn't step up, if some teams that weren't as good in the East, don't step up again this season, DC is going to step right in there and get back to the playoffs like they have over the past couple of seasons outside of last season.
This hurts my soul, Mike, but sorry, I have to read it. $4.99 Super Chat, DJ Kilgan in Oklahoma over Texas, and I've lived in both. Boomer Sooner. Oh, that hurts.
I'm almost speechless, Cam. Oklahoma, the state, they should be the honorary member in Vice Wars because all that's there are casinos and weed dispensaries. So, I passed through Norman last week, but good luck with that, I guess. I don't know.
Did you remember passing through Norman, or did you just breeze on through?
It wasn't much there to remember. It's a ton of Brahms, it's a ton of dispensaries and casinos, but other than that, it's a dust bowl.
$1.99 Super Chat for Skippy. Mia screaming, "Hi, Cam." Hi, Mia. Okay, we got to go up, because I'm not going to miss anybody. I saw a $2 Super Chat from DJ wanting Atlanta earlier, so let's hit the Atlanta Swarm schedule next. By the way, appreciate all y'all for supporting the channel, supporting the league through your Super Chats. It's so much fun getting to interact with everybody, especially because I'm in this dungeon for what seems like 7 days a week. And I don't get out much these days. Yeah, thanks for keeping me company today, Mike, and everybody else in the chat. Here's the Atlanta Swarm schedule. Can't wait to see the new look Hive. That starts in week 2 against DC. They'll go to Louisiana in week 1. They'll also go to Florida in week 3. So 2 divisional road games in the first 3 weeks of the season. Of course, the East now has 5 divisional games, but still quite interesting because they end the season with a divisional road game at Jacksonville. So they have 3 of them. They have their 2 divisional home games back-to-back after a bye in late September, early October, Florida and Louisiana. A couple home games after the bye, after their first bye as well, Carolina, Motor City. But, the Swarm, that big game against Baltimore is going to loom large, but in Week 12, who knows what we're going to have.
Yeah, who knows what we're going to have. In Atlanta, they're one of these intriguing teams to me. I put Atlanta, I put Arizona, I put Vancouver, Florida, some of our traditional teams that we're used to, seeing be successful. I'm just curious as to how that's going to carry over. Will that success carry over? Will the better strategic minds just be the better strategic minds going into this new era, just because they know the game better, not necessarily the game platform per se, but just the game of football? Will that carry over? How will these teams, deploy their strategies? How will they, build their rosters? Atlanta's just one of those teams for me that's intriguing. Can they, continue that 10-1, 11-1, 10-2 type thing that they, we're accustomed to seeing from them going into this new era. And they have a couple of matchups in there that are intriguing as well. Baltimore, 2 against Florida in the division. Louisiana is always tough. So going to be interesting to see for me for sure how some of these teams come into season 21, that's been around forever and how they approach this new era.
Russell Taylor with the $1.99 Super Chat. Thank you, Russell. Mac Dre with the $2. #ramble on, and that's who's next. Indianapolis with the Indianapolis skyline in the back of their new raceway as the Ramblers will kick things off at Minnesota before hosting Mexico City in the matinee, their first night home game. That's against Arizona in week 4. That's the say it with your chest game. And there's a rumor, Mike, that in Indy Stadium at night, all the press box lights are snake eyes, just staring at you and trying to scare their opponent. Week 5 bye before 2 straight on the road. Fort Worth at San Diego. And they also, same thing, bye week 12, 2 straight on the road. At Vegas, at Sioux Falls to end things. So coming off the byes, they have their road games. 4 home games in a row sandwiched in between. Denver, Minnesota, Alamo City, Tulsa. What you think of the Ramblers' schedule?
Well, it's kind of interesting how a lot of the schedules are breaking down where it's a lot of road games and it's a lot of home games in a row. I look at that Houston matchup, and as you mentioned, the Snake Eyes, I'm kind of happy that game is in Houston. I don't like snakes, so let's get them in Houston so I can stay away from the reptiles and anything of that sort. But it's going to be an intriguing matchup going against Chad, my first time, former teammate and GM in London with him. It's going to be interesting going up against him for the first time with them coming down to Houston.
Los Angeles says, Chad is a jerk. We have a simple stadium, my foot. Yeah, Indy's starting to look pretty good around here. $2 super chat from Bob Funk. You did the boats. Now let's see the planes. All right, we can do that as you get one last look at the Indianapolis Stadium. How about San Diego? As the Mavericks Stadium looking sharp in the camo. All sorts of good stuff going on in San Diego right now. They start at home against Arizona and Sioux Falls before taking it on the road 3 in a row at Minnesota, at Vegas, at Denver, to back at home Portland, Indy, followed by Seattle and Tulsa away from home. They will conclude with a bye and hosting Denver. The interesting thing about San Diego's schedule is their late byes. They are the team with the latest first bye, week 10, and then they have one a few weeks later. So some late byes for the Mavericks could help or hurt. Your overall thoughts?
Yeah, San Diego, how can they respond to their season last season, their first winning season, didn't make the playoffs, one of 3 teams with a winning record that didn't make the playoffs last season. Can they improve on that, or can they stay the same but get into the playoffs this time? But yeah, that's an early grind for them, 8-9 weeks in a row without a break. Interesting thing about San Diego, one thing that we do know that they moved on from their quarterback, Scar Patterson. Who will they replace him with? What will that look like? And yeah, man, this is going to be a tough schedule to start off with, but they do get a chance to take a breather right there towards the end and get themselves back together if need be and make a playoff run.
While we wait for any straggling super chats to come in before we start going reverse alphabetical order with this stuff, let's talk about how these buys may settle. Of course, with an odd number of teams, you're going to have at least one bye every single week of the schedule, and with a new game and a new era, early buys could really kind of help you if you're falling behind early, trying to figure out what to do, or maybe you've suffered a couple losses in a row and you need to regroup and retool. Late buys could, obviously, help with game planning in some of the biggest games against teams that did not have a bye alongside with you late in the season. So, where do you rest on this, Mike? And what would you like if you were Houston?
I would say probably an early buy just to make some adjustments if need be. If we got out of the gate, a little slowly, give our coaches and scouts a chance to adjust as to how we want to attack teams moving forward. But the more interesting thing outside of the strategy itself is going to me, be roster construction. How are these teams going to? What are they going to put value on, so to speak? Are they going to put more value on certain positions, or even if let's just take a Baltimore for instance, that we're accustomed to them bringing back pretty much all their roster, 20 to 21 players, pretty much every season, and we typically see them able to cut some value off players and then they build it back up during the course of the season. But I think that's going to be handled a little bit differently now. So how those teams are going to build their roster and what are they going to make the strong suit of their team and how they're going to attack teams. So it's going to be interesting to see how all 27 teams come into this new era with their philosophy, roster wise, strategy wise, and things of that sort. So but yeah, I think the buy early would help teams at best, especially if they get off to a rough start.
So that's I couldn't have said it better myself, Mike, because that's about every thought that I would have on the subject. And at the end of the day, nobody knows anything about anything. And so if you got an early buy, hope it helps you. If you got a late buy, hope it helps you. But we'll see how it all shakes out over time. All right, let's go to let's go reverse alphabetical order here. Mix things up. We'll start in Vancouver with the Vancouver Legion schedule. They will begin at Alamo City, followed by an early bye, and then home against Vegas and Mexico City. So they don't have to worry about Cade Stevens being in bounds, at least in the regular season. They will come there to take on Vancouver. They will finish off the season with back-to-back divisional games at Portland and versus Seattle. Also, that Fort Worth rematch after the bye for Vancouver September 23rd. Your thoughts on the Legion?
Well, my first question, since Andy's in the chat, will Vancouver have stripes on their uniforms next season? That's my most intriguing question about Vancouver. But you know, just had to give Andy a hard time, man. I miss you too as well, Andy. But
don't worry, Andy. He says the same three things every time he talks to me too. So,
but as I was intrigued by, you know, as I said about Atlanta. At the same time, when I do see a Vancouver and I know Andy Hamilton, I think they're going to be fine. I think they're going to adjust. I think they're going to be the same teams and you know, strategists that they've always been. And then to see their schedule, I can't help but say Vancouver's still the class of the Pacific right now until somebody proves otherwise.
Well, I think that's the most important part of it. Until someone proves otherwise, since they are literally the only team that has ever won that division. Sioux Falls Sparrows next in the Central. You've got hosting Houston. That's the first time Houston will go since they lost that playoff game a couple seasons ago. Then at San Diego for the Sparrows. Their byes are pretty balanced. So is their home and away at that. They will host Indianapolis at the end of it. At Tulsa, at Alamo City will be a tough two-game stretch. Well, actually, if you go up a little further, Mexico City, Fort Worth, then the bye at a divisional opponent and at Alamo City. It's not an easy way to end the season.
No, not an easy way to end the season at all, Cam. And this is probably the most mysterious team in the history of the league, whether it's APF, 2K4, whatever. We don't know what to expect out of Sioux Falls. They one season they're going to come out with 2 tight ends. The next season they come out 4 or 5 wide. So we don't know what to expect from them before. We definitely don't know what to expect from them coming into this season. But yeah, that's a tough way to close out any season. Fort Worth, Tulsa, and Indianapolis at the end. You know, I think Indianapolis is going to be solid again this coming season. So Sioux Falls, they definitely have their work cut out for them coming down the bottom stretch of that schedule.
All right, Mike, let's get to the Houston Headhunters at Sioux Falls to start, then an early bye, and then 3 in a row at home, so you don't have to worry about the road games, at least early on. Versus Indy, Alamo City, Fort Worth, so back-to-back divisional home games there early. That means you have divisional road games late, including after the bye at Alamo City. Tough stretch at the end, at Vancouver, at Mexico City as well. Ethan Kai welcoming back his old team to Houston. That's Houston at Seattle, and that is week number 9 on NLSE Plus. Mike, what do you think of your schedule?
Well, what stood out to me when I initially saw this schedule, Cam, just 3 first-time opponents in Indianapolis, Minnesota, and Seattle. But, Ethan Kai, former Houston Hyena at the time. Minnesota, first time having a chance to play them. And Indianapolis, of course, that's going to be an intriguing matchup, getting to play Chad Rowland and Adam Wiseman and those guys up there. But then, the Tex-Mex division, the South, is always tough. Alamo City, Mexico City, Fort Worth, tough matchups every season with that division. It's going to be tough as usual. Going out to Vancouver as well, I think, in that schedule. We're going to have a lot to prove going into this season if we want to get back to the playoffs in season 21.
We got Queen City next. Queen City says, Cam, do something great with our stadium. Okay, well, we're giving it a shot there in Queen City. Pirate ships coming along. We got new suites in the end zone, trying to get the Corsairs back to glory. Of course, established in season 1, one of the OG franchises in the SFL, trying to get back there. They get the week 1 bye and an extra week to prepare for Florida, who comes to town Sunday night at 6:45 Eastern. Couple road games at Motor City, at Louisiana, in the middle of the schedule at Canton 2, just 1 game against DC. But then you get to another SFL historical fact, and that is the first ever home-and-home series against Canton. They'll be at Canton, and then 8 days later, will welcome Canton back to their house before a bye. Just bizarre how the schedule fell, but that's how it fell. Of course, a 3-team division is always going to give you some interesting quirks, and then they got Motor City at home to end the season. But the home and home with Canton, you wanted to talk about trying to establish a new rivalry. That'll do it.
Yeah, nowhere to go but up for Queen City this season, right? But yeah, to see that is very interesting, Cam. I don't know how I would approach that as a coach, as a scout. seeing that matchup one week, and then we're going to follow it up and run it back, so to speak, the very next week. That's going to be intriguing. I think that's probably the most intriguing matchup that I've seen on anybody's schedule all season. That's going to be really fun to see how that plays out there in mid to late September.
All right, I think Louisiana's up next, but first, Chris Covers 199 Super Chat can't wait to play with all these stadiums, and the mod is getting worked on, man. It is really close. Not as close as the portal is, though. Any day now, we are waiting on coaches to be able to get in there and start creating contracts. Could free agency and re-signing all start at the same time? I don't know. It'll be coming out soon with all the dates and times and all that other good stuff to get your teams ready for a regular season unlike any other. It's just going to be just unbelievable around here, but we're over the moon excited about it.
Well, the SFL right now, Cam, is like that alluring person across the room that seems intriguing and full of mystery. We don't know when anything is going to start these days. Man, you're keeping it all a mystery. I love it.
Oh man, why do I feel like? I'll tell you after the broadcast. I don't want to get in trouble. Louisiana starts with Atlanta at home. Mike's falling out of his chair off screen. Starts with Atlanta at home, then at Canton on national television. 2 road games on national TV in the first 4 weeks. Interesting how that fell. But some early ringers. Atlanta, Baltimore, D.C. 3 of the first 4 games. It's going to be interesting to see how Louisiana adjusts with that. Then they've got 2 divisional games. In fact, 3 of their last 4 games in the division at Atlanta versus Jacksonville, at Florida. That game against Florida, the only time they will play Florida, and it's right at the end of the season. You see their East Division champions banner hanging up in the new Stack-Up Stadium. But what do you see out of Louisiana's schedule and the Revs, what they're cooking right now?
Yeah, I put this division right up there with the South, and not no bias because Houston's in there, but everyone knows the South is one of the toughest divisions in this league. I put this division right up there with the South, and anybody could take it on any season. All 4 of them can make the playoffs on any given season, and I expect nothing, differently this season. Louisiana, I hadn't heard much about them in the free agent market as far as who's out there, who's on the market for them, but I think they're possibly going to, keep things intact over there. So with that being said, I think they're going to be a good team. They always are. I think they figure things out from season to season, and I think they're going to be competitive.
You want to talk about GMs that have it all going right now? Ross Napoli's been all over this move, and GMs in general, Mike. I mean, it's important to take care of your people, take care of your players. That's a big point of emphasis by the SFL going into this new era, this new progression system, this new era of team building and roster construction. That's what we want to see, and Louisiana is taking good care of their people so far, from what we've seen and what we've heard.
Yeah, and if I can, shout out to Tom Tanner, the new GM and in charge of player personnel in Houston. He's done a fantastic job for us this offseason. I really like, the direction he wants to take us in, and looking forward to see how he, sees this roster for Houston this season. But I'm impressed with him so far. He's done a fantastic job.
He really has, and can't wait to see what Houston's roster looks like and what Tom's been able to do in free agency. Let's stay in the East Division. Let's go to the Lions Den in Jacksonville, as they will host Canton to start the season before going to Motor City. Then their first divisional game is Charleston. They go to Charleston, and then their first divisional game isn't until week 5. After the bye, they host Louisiana. They'll finish up with 2 of 3 on the road, including at Louisiana, at Queen City, and then they will host Atlanta to wrap things up. Pretty balanced there, kind of like DC's. Not anything too crazy on Jacksonville's schedule. But what may be their toughest stretch?
Yeah, and a special place in my heart for Jacksonville, of course, that jersey behind me is Jacksonville jersey. This is where I got my start. Can this team, Cam, turn the corner again, get back to the perennial playoff team and organization that we have been accustomed to seeing throughout their history? And but intriguing stretches in this schedule, nonetheless. At Florida, at Carolina, playoff team, at Florida, at home against Florida, then Baltimore. That has to be one of the toughest stretches that you're going to see on any schedule throughout the SFL season this year. And they're going to have a lot to prove to try to get themselves back to what I just spoke of, a perennial playoff team and championship contender season in the season out.
Yeah, sandwiched in between those two buys. And it's also worth noting it's not back-to-back, but it is still pretty close together. 2 out of 3 weeks, Jacksonville and Florida will play. The first game is week 6 on NLSE Plus, and then in Jacksonville in week 8. So it's kind of crazy how that fell as well for Jacksonville. Okay, who do we have? Have we done Fort Worth?
No.
Okay, Fort Worth Toros. They are next. They are at Mexico City to start things off at the convention before coming home against the Seattle Nemesis. An early bye before 2 road games at Tulsa and at Houston. 3-game homestand after that. Indy, Mexico City, Vancouver. That's about as tough of a 3-game home stretch as you might possibly imagine. Their only matchup against Alamo City, their rival that they've never beaten, is at the end of the season, week 14. All right, Fort Worth.
Yeah, this is an intriguing schedule. As you mentioned, 3 tough ones right there in the middle. Tulsa, Houston, kind of up towards the top. At Mexico City to get it all kicked off. Fort Worth is going to have a lot to prove early and often on this schedule to see if they can get back to where they had grown to this season. Made a pretty decent playoff run, and they have always been pretty much right there since their inception. They've been competitive in a lot of seasons. We've been expecting Fort Worth to be championship contenders. They made a good showing in season 20. Can they repeat that, and can they improve upon what they've been building over there with Marcus Dunhill and then GZ Bacon and a couple of guys? It was unfortunate the way they bowed out in the playoffs to Arizona with a bunch of injuries. I really felt like they could have won that game without that, but can they sustain that this season and bounce back? It remains to be seen, but they'll have a tough schedule to try to prove it against.
Florida rolling right along here. Florida, one of 3 teams whose stadiums are still heavily under construction, but they will start the season. Better hurry, Mighty. You got the clock's ticking now. Exactly 2 months away from opening night against the Baltimore Vultures. Can't wait to see what the Storm cook up, but here is their schedule. They'll host Baltimore before going to Queen City, then welcoming Atlanta to their house before a bye in week 4. 4 out of 5 on the road between weeks 8 and 12. At Jax, at Atlanta, at Motor City, at DC, with Carolina squished in tight. They get the bye before taking on Louisiana in week 14. Your thoughts on Florida's schedule?
Yeah, and see, Florida, one of those teams that they are the epitome for me as to what will this team be in 2K4. Will they be remotely anywhere close to what we are accustomed to seeing, even coming off a down season for them for sure this past season? What will they look like coming into to next season? They're going to have to prove it early, Cam, against Baltimore. Queen City obviously struggled last season, but Baltimore, Atlanta squeezed in between with Queen City squeezed in between. They got to prove themselves early.
To Denver we go. The Denver Nightwings. Richard Snowden Memorial Stadium. Love seeing his name up there. Season 13, Season 16 champions as Richard Snowden's looking sharp. They will start with 2 games at home, Tulsa and Los Angeles, before 2 on the road, Sioux Falls and Portland. And after that, it's pretty much one after the other until they finish up with 2 road games in division. At Arizona, at San Diego, but they do get the bye before the San Diego rematch. They also get a bye before taking on Minnesota. Expected to be a pretty tough team in Season 21. What do you think about Denver?
Yeah, I mean, you forget how good this organization was, and I guess still is, but they were really great for that stretch from Season 13 to 16 at one time. Had a lot of retirements after Season 16, and they have never quite gotten back to that level. But what will they be now? It's going to be interesting to see. Can they finally bounce back? They can't seem to get back on top of things as far as personnel and things like that. But the schedule, It's there. It's right in front of them. They're going to stay out west, as most of those, as kind of seems like it's broken down this season. So it's almost like a conference type alignment this season. Who's going to be the best out west? Who's going to be the best out east? And Denver's going to have a chance to prove themselves several times this season.
I believe we only have 3 left, Mike. It's Canton, Baltimore, the defending champs, and Alamo City. We'll leave Baltimore for last and take a look at the 4-time reigning champions, 5 of the last 6 years to close out the APF era. First, we'll go to Canton, where the Classics will be at Jacksonville. By the way, in love with Canton's gold numbers on the field. That's just going to – I can't wait to see that. It's going to look terrific. At Jacksonville versus Louisiana in week 2, but 3 of the 4 overall on the road to start the season before a bye, and then welcoming in Charleston on the Monday Night Spectacular. Of course, that back-to-back with Queen City, but then another divisional game with Motor City right after that. So 3 straight on the road. Why? Because Canton gets the Week 14 bye. So if Canton makes the playoffs, they get that Week 14 bye. If not, then they get to say au revoir a week earlier at D.C. 3 straight home games before that. Motor City, Atlanta, Carolina. What do you think of Canton's schedule and them ending with that bye?
Yeah, ending with that bye, the first thing kind of stood out with you possibly mentioning in the playoffs. Let's just say if they do have a great season and get a first-round bye, that means they're going to have a couple of weeks off to get prepared for someone in the playoffs. It's just if it happens to fall that way. But I think Canton, I think they're breaking in a new quarterback this season as far as, I don't know if it's going to be a rookie or veteran or whatever, but I think they are looking for a quarterback as well going into their 3rd season of existence. I always said, since their inception, I've liked everything about Canton. I think they do things the right way, and I think eventually it's going to pay off for them on the field because they do so many things right on the field, and they have a chance to get off to a decent start with Jacksonville still needing to prove themselves, Motor City needing to prove themselves, a tough matchup with Louisiana and Baltimore mixed in between, but they have an opportunity to get off to a decent start and then finish it off with a couple of home games before they have to go to D.C.
Let's go to the Boom Zone in Alamo City, where the Artillery showed off NordVPN Stadium earlier in the 4K23 exhibitions. Loved everything about what's going on over there. They will start the season with 2 at home, Vancouver, Minnesota, followed by a bye. Their first road game is at Houston in the division in Week 4. Houston, the rematch with Houston is towards the end of the season, Week 11, before a bye. Sioux Falls and Fort Worth. They've got 4 out of 5 on the road in the middle portion of their schedule. Where's the stretch for Alamo City that's interesting?
Yeah, this is always a tough organization to play. We've had, we've seen our share of Alamo City / Lone Star over the past couple of seasons down in Houston. They're always going to be a tough team to play. Great organization over there. Starting off in Vancouver, that's going to be an interesting matchup for both teams. Finishing off at Fort Worth, of course, that's a in-state rival, division rival. Fort Worth's going to have a chance to prove themselves. Championship team from a couple of seasons ago. Can they get back there? They always seem to keep that roster intact. How will they, divvy things up and place value on certain things remains to be seen. But interesting team, always going to be competitive. I don't expect anything else less from Alamo City.
I think about all the crazy finishes that Alamo City and Mexico City have had over the past couple seasons. Mm-hmm. That is a sneaky good game Saturday, 9:15 p.m., a late kickoff in San Antonio against Mexico City. That's going to be a real juicy mid-season matchup there for the Artillery. Okay, finally, last but not least, what is Baltimore going to look like this season? They go to Florida before they host Carolina, followed by a road game at Louisiana and home games versus Canton and D.C. They get Motor City off a bye. They get Carolina off a bye. They have a late Week 13 bye. Atlanta comes to town in Week 12, yeah, it's going to be interesting. The North was really down last season. The East was kind of surprisingly down. That is in Baltimore's rotation this season. If those divisions step up, I think we expect, like a Motor City and Canton and Louisiana and Florida, right, to all be improved. So who knows what these divisions are going to look like.
Yeah, I said Florida was intriguing. Arizona was intriguing, but for me, I think Baltimore is probably the most intriguing, and probably for the entire league. Are they going to be the same dominant Baltimore Vultures that we have seen the last 4 seasons for sure, and 5 of the last 6? Are they going to be the same team? I had an opportunity to speak with T-Pat a little bit on Dave Axel's show a couple of weeks ago, and for whatever crazy reason, I think they're going to be the same Baltimore that we've always seen. He's convinced me that they're ready, they're prepared. They're going to be the same team we've always seen in the past. And my theory is until someone proves that they could beat them, these guys are going to be right there at the end competing for championships as they always have been.
And that's it, folks. That is all of the games on the schedule. The website will have all of the games up within the next day or two. It is a holiday weekend. We did have to elicit some help getting our schedule imported in, but it should all be up there in the next couple of days, and you'll be able to see all of it in all its glory. We will start at the I in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, at the convention in Cincinnati. Thanks to everybody in the chat all evening long. Mike, your final thoughts on the schedule in Season 21. The next part of the offseason is going to be our signing as teams finish up their stadiums and get their uniforms ready and all prepped for the mod release as well. But your thoughts on how it all came together?
Came together nicely. I wish it was a full 28. I wish my London Knights, who over here on my left shoulder, I wish they were still around for us to talk about. But other than that, I just can't. My anticipation, I'm almost speechless as to how this season is going to go. I can't wait to see that first game and how teams match up with one another. Are they going to look familiar to what we've seen in the past? They may just change everything up and they may be totally different. We don't know, but just getting to look at all the stadiums here tonight, that's going to be exciting. That was one of the things I felt like I was going to miss from the old era, but now just seeing what some of these teams are doing, man, I'm excited to see those as well. But looking forward to convention weekend, getting things kicked off, looking forward to free agency and these signings to see what guys are going to land and what teams are looking to do to improve upon in next season. I'm just excited for the season overall.
And I'm glad that the stadium process is nearly complete. I'm glad that the schedule release is out. That's 2 big things. We've been going since the championship game, Mike, if you can believe it, which was just 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
16 days ago, Baltimore's crowned champion, and here we are preparing for another season. I'm happy to kick my feet up, and hey, me and you are going to get a chance to grab a bite, I think, tomorrow, and that'll be good.
Hope so, man. I'll be looking forward to it.
Yep. So until then, thank you for all who have given their lives for this great country, for us to be free, for us to enjoy this amazing planet in the comfort of our own homes and amongst friends. Thank you to all who gave your lives. Happy Memorial Day, everyone. $1.99 super chat, Jay Ballmer. I'll be at the convention, so question me there. There you go. Okay, all right, that's fair. I can live with that. Memorial Day tomorrow. Recognize it, appreciate it, and enjoy the time that we have here. For Mike St. Green, I'm Cameron Irvine. We'll see you at the convention in 2 months in Cincinnati. Have a great night, everybody.